So, this is a reply message to the traveler who asked me what I thought about e bikes and minimalism and everything about that. And I did have a little bit of a I thought about this because I walk around, I drive around, and whatever. So, first of all, getting into it, I love e bikes. I think they're awesome. I've never tried one myself. So, I don't know exactly what the experience is like. However, my concept and my thinking around them is that they're really good. So the first thing is I had a boosted board, electric skateboard. It was awesome, but there was a big problem with the boosted board, which is it was heavy, and that's fine, but you can't really lock up a boosted board outside of a store. So you go boosted and you do your errand, but then you got to carry it with you, and you always have that arm tied, and you have the helmet, and you just you mess up your head, like your hair or whatever. And it's kind of this thing that's like I found to be very cumbersome, especially with the helmet. And I have a whole story about why you should really wear a helmet. Like I had a really bad spill one time, and it was in the doctor's room, concussion, all that. So really wear the helmet. It's you think it's not going to happen. Skateboarded of all types for a long time, and it still happened. So that is a concern with the idea of like, okay, you have to have a helmet, you have to be safe. It's not just this thing that you can just whip around. So these things that seem really exciting, the reality is there's a responsibility to them. And yeah, it's funny because you don't think of that because they're cool. So the e-bike with that is I think you can tie up an e-bike to a bike rack or whatever. It's much more normal in like day to day. Like unlike the boosted, you have to carry and so on. So that eliminates that big problem with the e-bike. It is heavy. So for me, I was living in New York, a third floor walk up. So the boosted worked fine, but when I had my BMX bike, even that was without any motors or anything, it was just a bike, but it was just kind of a heavier one. That was a pain to just have this bike and running up and down. So again, this weight comes into to play. So if, for instance, like you don't have like a place to just ride the bike into it, and that's where it stays when you're not using it, that's going to be a factor. And then as far as the whole minimalism thing, like the concept of getting rid of a car is so awesome to me. I loved not having a car so much. When I was in New York, I it was 8 years without a car, and anytime I needed one, I rented it or I Uber everywhere. And the renting became so easy. You rent it a few times, you kind of like, oh yeah, and you find cheaper rentals, and it's never a problem. Not having a car was awesome. I was gifted a car, and I moved out of. My mom gave me my car, and it was a life changing thing because I was no longer in a public transportation area. So I need the car, well, at least for the life that I wanted to build. And but I still think about it all the time. Like, why am I paying all these things? Like the insurance, the excise, and registration adds up really quick, and gas, obviously. And my car it's paid for. There's no bills. My mom gave it to me. It's great. There's still maintenance though. There's just it's a money thing. And then most of the time I use my car and I go somewhere where I spend money. And I'm not getting as much exercise as when I was in New York, not driving. I would walk everywhere. I would walk an hour just to, go check something out, like to pick up a shirt. I'd bring a backpack, go walk to the city, go shopping, walk back, maybe whatever. So the lifestyle around not having a car, I feel is better. And I hope that in the future, I won't need a car. I'm hoping that if I can find some other sort of transportation, like an e-bike. However, the reason I'm not selling my car and going with e-bike is because I feel like an e-bike is a secondary thing. Like I would still want my car if I had the e-bike. Now, if the e-bike replaced my car, then I would be like, okay, that sounds cool. Like, let's do that. But I don't think it's going to. It's not going to do what my car does. I don't expect it to, but there's a reason I have my car and I need that car to fill it. And I refuse to get two vehicles. I think everybody should have one vehicle, end of story. Have a truck if you use truck stuff, have a van if you have kids stuff, you know? I'm like, for me, I have a little hatchback and that's just my life. I've heard that Americans often have more than one vehicle and then they struggle with money. I'm like, why do you just sell the other car, right? So, and I think actually recently the minimalists have talked about that. I think, I don't know. I listen to podcasts out of order all the time. So, but they were talking about it at some point. I believe it was them. And no, it wasn't. It was Order of Man was talking about cars. Anyways, I agree. I think that like it's ridiculous. I mean, yeah, sure, if you can afford it, it's fine. You don't care and it's good for your life. But if you can't really afford everything you want, then I don't think you need a second vehicle at all. Not a motorcycle. I just stick to one thing. If you are a lover of vehicles, like it's your hobby, then yeah, that makes sense. But for me, I'm not a lover of transportation, so I'm not going to think of an e-bike of any other sort other than it would replace my car. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it right now. Unless I experience it and I'm like, oh, okay, this is just super fun. But I don't think I don't know why I would bother. Unless I'm working on it, like I would try it out to see if I can replace my car. It's funny, like I think about getting rid of my car all the time. And I mean, so it's on my radar and maybe it could, but I'd have to kind of like try it. And that's the hard part with the e-bikes is that I don't know where I would try one, rent one, borrow one. I don't know. And at like what, $1,900 or something, or between 1,000 and 2,000. It's kind of not like I'll pick it up and see how I like it. It's a little bit of a big deal. And then reselling it, I don't know how fast I would resell and how much of a hit I would have to take to resell it. So the complications with the e-bike are pretty high, and there is a risk to it. And then let alone I'd have to have like probably a charging station and then a place to store it. And then it would have to sit in my living room because that's right there at the door. It just seems like something that I just don't want to bother taking care of or having. I don't mind walking or at this point driving somewhere and then walking if I'm trying to. It's just exercise seems more superior than a fun electric bike ride. That's kind of where I'm thinking. But if I ever see them, I look at them, I'm like, oh, those are really cool. I bet you they're really fun. But for me and my lifestyle and my tastes and my ways about me and minimalism, I don't need it. I'm going to stop that at the gate. Be like, I'm not going to take care of that. I don't want to have the charger or the place to store it. I don't want to have to worry about that. I don't like wearing a helmet. Like it's just cumbersome, but I feel like it's absolutely necessary. Also too, if you think of motorcycle accidents, it would probably come in the same area where it's almost never the motorcyclist or e-bike's problem or fault. It's almost always other people because they just don't see you. You're smaller, you don't have as much going on. And like I hear about like certain bikes that you have to like buy the flashing lights and so on. For me, it just, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to line up with a lot of things that I am or what I'm interested in. So that's kind of how I feel. I know it's like there's some positive and negative, but for me, I don't know there's no absolute sales thing that I'm like, this is it. This is like the hard numbers, like whatever. It would absolutely replace my car, for example. I just don't think so. I'm driving 30 minutes to go see my dad. And I don't think that I would want that exhaustion of the bike for however long that time is. And then do I bring my charger? So now I have to helmet, e-bike, backpack with a charger, and what if it rains? I don't know. So all that stuff. So for me, if I'm walking, I just go to the store. Walking when it rains or riding a bike was like walking when it's raining, because when I rode this boosted board, I just get soaked. Like that wheel spit. It's like, it was too much for me. I was just like, this is so annoying when I was on the boosted board. So yeah, that's that. That's what I'm thinking. I hope that helped you. I loved answering questions. So if you guys have any more, let me know. Until next time. Cheers.